Hey there and welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Natasha and I share content here on YouTube and over on Instagram all about memory keeping and creative planning in hopes to inspire you to take some time for yourself today to create and to recharge. I definitely feel that spending time investing in ourselves, creating and making something beautiful is one of the very best things that we can do to take care of our well-being and our mental health. So now that we have introductions out of the way, let's jump into today's video. So today is the second video in our 4-part series all about starting memory planning. This series is for brand new crafters who are looking to get into memory planning and for seasoned folks who have been memory planning for some time but are looking for some different ways that they can approach their weekly documenting. So last video number 1 in the series, we talked all about creating memory planning spreads using no photos. I'll go ahead and link that video in the cards and the description box below. So if you haven't had a time to check out that video yet, don't sweat it. After this one, we'll be sure to link it so you can get caught up in the series. So for our second video, today's video, I am going to be talking all about approaching the memory planning layout with your product first. So I use this approach when I'm in the mood to create. I want to play with pretty paper. I'm often doing this when I'm a little tired or I just don't have a ton of mental capacity to really sit down and start something like a full layout, but I just have that itch and that urge of I need to go to my craft room and I need to spend some time just playing with some pretty paper to bring me back, right? I think we've all been there and had those days. So I want you to keep in mind of this approach when you are wanting to memory plan but maybe don't have the full capacity or the full energy to be able to do this in one go. So to condensely break it down, we're gonna go ahead and select the products first, and then we're gonna create a layout only with the products. And then at a later date, we can add the photos. Now, this is something that you could batch. So let's say you don't have access to a photo printer. You order them online or you print them out at Walgreens. So you could approach your memory planning this way. You do the deco, almost like a before the pen if you are into creative planning. So you're gonna set it up and then you're gonna go ahead and add your photos later. You will see in this process video how I go about setting this up, what products that I'm using for this type of approach, and how I lay things out on the page to make sure that I will have some space for my photos later. If you have not subscribed here yet, be sure to subscribe by hitting the button down below. That way you can stay tuned with all of the great videos that I have upcoming this month all around memory planning. So without further ado, let's jump into today's video. Let's talk about supplies for today's video. Now, because I'm going to be doing the deco first and then adding my photos later on once they get printed and sorted, I am going to rely on the products to do the heavy lifting here. Now, I noticed that in the kit there was a lot of repeated circular elements, so that's going to be the main component of my design today. So there is the stamp that is in the Traveler's Notebook Memory Keeping Kit, which is a circle that fits perfectly in an 1.5 inch punch. So here's a little example. I was just practicing on some plain white paper there. And then these chipboards are from the Traveler's Notebook Memory Keeping Kit. I've punched them out in a few different sizes. I'm going to do some different layering and clustering, and the circles are going to be the main design element. Now, I showed you what it looks like here on just a plain piece of paper, but of course there's so many beautiful patterns as always in this collection. I want to make sure that I grabbed my favorites. So this is my absolute favorite pattern in this April collection, Meadow, and I really like this coral orange print as well. So I'm going to be using these two, and then I wanted to pull a yellow as I see that it's in here. So I've got this brighter diamond pattern, and then I also selected a more muted beige yellow tone. So depending on how I'm feeling, once I start getting the patterns mixing and matching, I may decide to use both of them or just one of them. Now, if you noticed, it looks like this is from a traveler's notebook, and you are correct. I took apart my Simple Dory, which is the traveler's notebook from Cocoa Daisy. If you're not familiar with it, I just removed the staples, and I really enjoy using this pattern paper in my memory planner for more of a smooth finish. I have pulled these rub-ons as well. I am always looking for, when I'm doing this type of layout, you know, I'm in a mood to create, but I don't necessarily want to remember, because of my short-term memory issues, what actually happened that week. So I'm looking for generalized prompts and products that aren't too specific, like saying something in April. I know for sure this is going to be a layout for March, not April, so I'm not going to use that. Maybe the rainy days. I don't know if it was really raining that day, so I'm going to avoid that type of product that's going to narrow it in. I'm looking for something that is broad. So for example, on this day, this is really for everyday moments, pretty generic, and can work for a lot of different types of stories that I want to include in my memory planner. So I really love using black as a contrast, especially when using these softer pastel colors. So I did pull these out. We'll see if I get to use them or not. I like to have some different options when I'm creating. As I mentioned when reviewing my supplies, I'm really relying on the repeated element of the circles in this layout. When I'm doing these layouts that are before the photos, that are before the journaling, I often am relying heavily on the design of the layout. So something like a circle or a grid layout makes it very easy to plug in your photos and your journaling down the road. I have my chipboard stickers ready to go, and here I'm just placing the items in the clusters that I want to have scattered throughout my layout. As you can see here, I'm just using that stamp from the Traveler's Notebook Memory Keeping Kit, and then going to use my punch to get a perfect circle for the layout. Right now, as I am arranging and rearranging the circular elements, I am looking at balancing color and pattern. So obviously I've got several different patterns here, but in each cluster I'm looking to have a little bit of the yellow, and then also the other color that I'm going to pull throughout this is that peach tone. Now I have the green anchored just on 3 of these clusters, as that's going to be the darkest, richest color that I have, and I'm working to build that visual triangle. In the next video of this series, I will be giving you guys just a little tease right now. It is all about using sketches to inspire your memory planning layout. And I feel like sketches work really nicely with this idea of putting down product and playing with product before you actually are getting to the memory planning activities. So actually putting down your photos and actually doing the journaling. This is just really that creative play. So make sure you stay tuned for number 3 in this video series of Sit Down and Start to Memory Plan, to see how I approach memory planning layouts using scrapbook sketches as my inspiration. A simple pro tip: when you are lapping or overlapping elements off the page, Always turn the page to the back side so you can see where that element is with the edge of the paper. And here I'm actually going to steal that bottom piece and just layer it up at the top to bring actually that green in a fourth location. But I definitely recommend, like I said, it's really easy, but I have cut out chunks of papers before because I didn't do that one little easy step of flipping it over, and it sucks. So you remember the rub-ons? Well, it is their time to shine. So right now I am really looking on how I can bring some more horizontal elements to my layout. Now, if you notice, everything's really in a cluster going vertically. So right now I'm going to be adding some different items, especially these arrows, and you'll see some crosses in just a moment here that are going to be just making my design more rich and complex, so that way it's not just going all in one direction. Now I am going to be keeping these rub-ons close to these clusters because remember, we're doing this ahead of time. It's just all about creative play and just having fun with patterned papers and just pretty products from Coco Daisy at this time. But I want to make sure that I'm not going to be upsetting future Natasha, right? And putting something right smack in the middle of one of those columns. Now, once I do go and add my photos at a later date or my journaling, I can always go and add more. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. This is just an approach. It's just a suggestion. Maybe you'll try this out and hate it, but I have found that this is one of the ways that really helps me stay consistent in creating in my memory planner, because I've got that urge. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. Let's pick some pretty supplies and start creating. So keep that white space there. It is okay. You don't have to fill up every inch of white space on your memory planning pages. That space is actually invited because it gives your eye a rest from all of the different creative elements, photos, and journaling that you will have once this is all completed. In the spirit of having products that reflect an everyday vibe and nothing too specific, it's going to give me that flexibility to add in whatever happened this week once I sit down to do the actual memory planning. So I have done a little bit of rub-on surgery to just make that work for me, and just kept the today. And don't be afraid to trim and cut your supplies to make them work for you, even if that means cutting up a stamp. I've done that before as well. Now I am going to do some serious rub-on surgery here with these arrows. With the power of editing, I'm gonna make this go very fast because I will say it was a bit of a pain to cut these the way that I wanted to, but overall I really love the splashes of the dark black against these pastel colors. One of my go-to supplies when approaching my memory planning layout with the products first is always selecting an alpha stamp and some alpha letters to use throughout the layout. Here I am pre-stamping out the month, and I'm also going to be using some alpha stickers. I know when I go to sit down to create this layout. So I hope that this video has given you some ideas. This is a look at the final product. I'll be adding the numbers off camera here. You can see that it is full, but there is plenty of white space to go and add some photos and journaling to document this week. Be sure to follow me over on Instagram, where I'll be sharing this completed layout with the photos and journaling. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to let me know by giving me a thumbs up, and don't forget to stay tuned for the upcoming videos in this series. Until next time, I'll catch you all later.